and welcome to Fog and Fear and Butterbeer. I'm your host, Adam the Spooky Thunderer, or Adam for short. So, is this a podcast? Is this a show? I told myself I could never podcast again. The answer is, I don't know, I'm really not trying to put labels on it. You call it what you will, and I'll just try to figure out how to deliver more content to you. So what is this podcast about? Well, if you're in the know and have been to the event, it's about Halloween Horror Nights, pretty much. The event that happens in Universal Orlando every spooky season. It is S-tier, peak Halloween fun times. And so why am I doing a show about it? Well, part of delivering content in the off season. Is this going to be a show by itself in the Spookyverse? Yes. Is it going to eventually overtake the Spookyverse name and it becomes the whole channel's identity? Yeah, probably by spring. We'll see. So, with all that said, there will be, of course, just lots of talking in here, which might make you consider it a podcast, but I'm not calling it that. But it does not come without its visual aids, because I do have a lot of leftover footage that I meant to make into vlogs and at some point just stopped during our trip there last September to HHN 33. So yeah, enjoy some clips. If anything, it's just a little bit of HHN serotonin just to bring you back to the good old days. So yeah, how are we going to be starting off this show, podcast, whatever? Well, as far as subject matter goes, it was going to be me talking about last year's event, or I guess still technically this year's event, and giving you my top houses and scare zone list and everything, whatever. But no, we don't have to do that, because the rumor mill is already a churning. HHN 365 podcast, shout out to them, shared on their X Twitter thing that I don't have, that HHN Insider Legacy should put out a little rumor that maybe for HHN 34 we'll be getting a Last of Us Part 2 house. Ooh. Now there's also been other rumors like sort of floating around that are there like, you know, Terrifier and maybe Megan, but right now we're focusing on Last of Us Part 2. Why? Because it's something I've actually played. Of course, because 1 year ago, year and a half ago, year and 15 months ago, at HHN 32, there was a house based on The Last of Us Part 1. And at that point, you know, the show had just gone through its first season back in January. So, and at one point it was sort of announced that it was going to be a house based on the show, and then they just kind of pivoted and put in that Naughty Dog and PlayStation branding, and was just like, nope, this is actually going to be about the actual game. And I absolutely loved the house. I mean, I feel like it was a very strong year that year for house lineups, especially IPs. But The Last of Us was my actual favorite. Like, I mean, was it objectively the strongest house? No, I would say that would be Universal Monsters Unmasked that year. But I mean, look, when I love something, it just, I got biases, and there's nothing wrong in this instance with having that bias towards Last of Us. So it was absolutely my favorite and my must do every night that we went there. And overall, I think with the general audience, even for people that hadn't played the game, I thought it was pretty well received as well. So that all happened, and by that time, I had seen the show, and I was like halfway, I guess, through the game when I found it at a video game store in the mall for the PlayStation 3. And now we are here, flash forward to December 2024, and we've got a Last of Us Part 2 house in the rumor mill coming. And at this point, I've beaten said game on PS3, went out and bought the little prettied up version Part 1 for PS5 and beat it, and I've played Last of Us Part 2 and beat it. And I think this is the timing for this is because season 2 of The Last of Us will be coming this spring. Release date exactly to be determined, but apparently it's been narrowed down to coming in the spring. So looking forward to that. That's a whole other discussion right there, which I might make as part of the subject matter in this show if you'll indulge me. So Last of Us Part 2, how am I feeling about it as somebody who's actually gone through the game? I'm very excited for it for simply one reason: the Rat King. Now, spoilers ahead if you haven't played the game, or you're planning on watching the show and trying to keep fresh by not playing the game. But the Rat King is something that Abby, the other protagonist, won't call her an antagonist because she seems like the antagonist for obvious reasons at the beginning of the game, but I don't know, right now she kind of feels like the second protagonist to me. So Abby goes to the very bottom, like below the basement practically, of this abandoned hospital that her group, the Wolves, have taken control of. And there's this, what do I even call it? This big ball of infected. I mean, I'm talking about stalkers, probably clickers as well, regular infected, all come together, and they're all coming out at you at this ball with legs, I think. And you have to do a whole lot to try to stop it, basically. So that thing was absolutely terrifying. And if that thing actually was coming at me at an HHN house, that would absolutely floor me. You know why? Because I don't have pipe bombs and hunting rifles and all that on me, so I just gotta keep going. So yeah, that's the main reason. Other than that, I mean, there's so much in the game. I mean, literally, because you play a good bit of it as Ellie starting out, and then you feel like you're towards the end, and then you just stop at that point, and then you go all the way back to pretty much the end of the last game, and you start that as Abby, and you play it all the way through till you get back to that point again. So yeah, I mean, I know I take a long time anyway trying to get through video games, but I think that's genuinely like one of the longest games I've ever played. So I mean, diverting back on the discussion of the show, they're gonna have to fit a lot into season 2, or somehow split it off into 2 seasons, which I hope not, because they take a long time between seasons if the gap between 1 and 2 are any indication. And probably why they're definitely, if this is going to become an HHN house, would just lean into basing it off of the game. But yeah, the Rat King is definitely like that reason why I was like, I need this as a house. I need to go through it. I need that Rat King jumping out at me, and I need it to happen at least 5 or 6 times in the month of September 2025. So, I mean, that's all I got pretty much for that. So what about you? Have you played it? Does this rumor do anything for you if you haven't played it? Because maybe you went through the house from the first game and enjoyed it, or you're just a fan of the show. Like, tell me how you're feeling about this. And of course, there's other rumors going around right now that, you know, maybe we'll touch on later if they start to really gain steam, like Terrifier and what else? I feel like we're inching up towards a Megan one. There's a whole lot of, at least hope, and especially from my end and from a lot of people, is that The Weeknd signs a little bit of a extension with HHN and brings something like the After Hours Nightmare trilogy thing over at Hollywood, which by all accounts looked absolutely incredible. And that's why we on the East Coast are like, can we have that in Orlando? Please, please. So yeah, I think that's all the rumors that I've had covered in my brain. Merry Christmas. I don't know when this is coming out. This will probably be out sometime after Christmas. Hope you had a good Christmas. Have a happy new year. We're here now. It's going to be a whole other fun sort of several months of rumor discussion and speculation maps, which I'll absolutely be talking about on here, of course. I mean, speculation map season is like an important part of the process leading up to announcement season and then event season. So if you like to follow me on Instagram, and I'll absolutely be posting and losing my mind over every single announcement and rumor. Probably I'll be on here. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. And of course, in the span of a few months, even though I said at the end of October, I'll never do that again, I'll of course be bringing back the shopping vlogs. Maybe not as much as I actually did last summer, or definitely not as much as I said that I would do back when I started it in the spring. But they're coming back. They're coming back. So in any event, I don't really have a little special sign off for this particular show, but I'll keep the one that I've been rolling with. Thanks for joining me on Fog and Fear and Butterbeer, and have fun and stay spooky.